While Walter adored Sophia, he always berated me and treated me roughly. During Thanksgiving, I took Sophia back to my parents' home, and while we were having dinner, I got a call from Walter. Expecting it to be some pointless conversation, I put it on speakerphone so my mother could hear. Then, Walter's cheerful voice came through. "You don't need to come back." "What?" "I've brought Sophia's moving boxes to the house." I was completely baffled by what he was saying. "It's because of you that Sophia doesn't want to come home. If you just leave, Sophia can live freely with me like she did when she was a child. So, get out already." I was beyond angry and just astounded. "You can live in a shelter alone." "All right," I replied quietly and hung up. Suddenly, my mother and Sophia burst out laughing. Inside, I cursed at Walter. He better be ready. It's gonna be too late to apologize later. My name is Michelle, and I'm a 55-year-old housewife. Walter was a senior in college, and after graduation, we met through a mutual friend and started dating. 2 years after our marriage, when I became pregnant, he was overjoyed. After our child was born, he actively took part in raising her. I often hear stories about fathers who are not involved in child rearing, but Walter was surprisingly involved in taking care of our daughter, Sophia. Many of my friends were envious. On the other hand, after giving birth to Sophia, he treated me as if I were disposable. It seemed like Walter had this rule: the more you adore your daughter, the more you can belittle your wife. He didn't hesitate to verbally abuse me, even in front of Sophia. Come to think of it, when we were dating, Walter seemed to look down on me, who was 3 years younger. Since we were from the same school, he didn't mock my education but made fun of my age. "Michelle, you're so cute, not knowing such things." "I'm sorry." "It's okay. I've lived 3 years longer than you, so I have more life experience. You won't go wrong if you listen to me." "Yes." Back when we were newlyweds, he spoke more kindly. However, as time went by, he became more and more arrogant. "Hey, many wives balance work and household chores. I'm taking care of Sophia, and you only have a part-time job for 6 hours. You should be able to handle it better, right?" After attending a daycare committee meeting after work and having only bought a single ready-made dish due to being in a hurry, he said all that. When I mistakenly scheduled the neighborhood cleanup a week off, he nagged at me for an hour. "Get it together. I'm embarrassed when you're like this. Sophia will also be talked about. Do you intend to put Sophia through hardship being her mother?" "I'm sorry." But Walter also read the neighborhood notice in front of me. Before I could mark the date on the calendar, he passed it to our neighbor. When I asked him which day it was, he answered confidently, so I assumed that was the cleanup day. It wasn't only my mistake. But if I pointed that out, he'd berate me tenfold. To end the argument quickly, it was best to show a humble attitude and bear it. Whenever I fell sick, Walter got upset. Before marriage, when I told him that I wasn't in the best of health, he said such sweet words. "I'm robust, so if you ever get sick, I'll take care of you." But when I did feel unwell, Walter would incessantly complain in front of me, while I lay weak in bed. "I can't make dinner because I have a fever of 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit? Can't take care of your husband? You're failing as a housewife." "I'm sorry, I think I caught something from a colleague. Can you please get some takeout or something from the store?" "Oh sure, always with the excuses. Sophia, let's go get some dinner with Daddy." When Walter returned home, he only bought alcohol and snacks for himself and treats for Sophia, not getting anything suitable for me to eat. "If you get us sick, you're in trouble. Right now, you're no different than a germ. Stay in your room until you're better," he snapped at me. As Walter closed the bedroom door, I could hear Sophia's concerned voice. "Daddy, what about Mom's food?" "She'll manage on her own. We shouldn't get sick, so let's stay downstairs." Reluctantly, I was making soup in the kitchen late at night when Walter found me and yelled at me. "What's this? You look fine. Don't fake it just because you want a break." I clearly look pale, can't you see? You catch a cold or the flu because you're not strong-willed enough. Look at me, I go to work even when I have a hangover. Seeing Walter puffing out his chest, I just lost the will to argue. Walter was always cold to me, but doted on Sophia. If she coughed even slightly, he'd panic, thinking, pneumonia? If she got hurt at the daycare, he'd overreact, demanding, who did this to her? When she had a boyfriend, Walter would sneakily find out where he lived and stake out, eventually telling Sophia, that guy has a childhood friend who's a girl. You should break up. This got him scolded by Sophia. So, when Sophia brought her boyfriend, Kevin, to our home, I was worried Walter might chase him away. But Kevin was the spitting image of a gentleman, so Walter had to accept him. You're way out, please take care of Sophia. Walter, sobbing and bowing his head, left Kevin looking surprised. Naturally, at their wedding, Walter cried like it was the end of the world, much to the amusement of our relatives. While such antics were endearing, Walter's behavior began to spiral out of control. Hey Sophia, why won't you live with us? Soon after she got married, every time Sophia visited, Walter would ask her. I knew the reason. Easygoing me and the meticulous Sophia had different personalities. Sophia realized this during her teenage rebellious phase, went to an out-of-state university, and started living alone after getting a job. With distance, she seemed to want to go out or chat, inviting me for shopping, movies, day trips, and even occasional cafe visits. This kind of distance felt just right. But Walter treated Sophia, now 30, like a child and kept pestering her about living together. If you're living in the next town, why not just live with us? I'm fine, I have Kevin with me. You're cold. I might get sick from loneliness. What are you saying? You're sturdy enough not to catch a cold. Initially, Sophia entertained Walter's whims, but he became too nagging, so she reduced her visits to just Christmas and Easter. Now, he'd send her messages every day, and if she didn't reply, he'd call to remind her. Ignoring that as well, one day Walter just waltzed into her house. When Sophia and Kevin returned, they found Walter lounging in their living room, which shocked them. Apparently, Walter secretly took their spare key and made a copy. After getting a call from Sophia, I rushed over to retrieve Walter. When I entered, Sophia was yelling at Walter. Dad, enough is enough. This is our home. What's wrong with a father visiting his daughter's house? Walter, what are you doing? You can't just break into someone's home. It's natural for a father to care for his daughter. I've changed Sophia's diapers, bathed her, played with her at the park. You don't care about her like I do. I love my daughter and worry about her every day. I gave up trying to reason with Walter and forcefully took him home. Though he complied that day, Walter kept on with his antics, getting Kevin, a non-drinker, drunk at bars, dragging him to horse races and boat races, and making him spend unnecessarily. No matter how many times I cautioned Walter, he wouldn't listen and seemed ready to dig in his heels, so I stopped pushing. Right around that time, the summer holidays were approaching, and given it was the first one since my father's passing, I planned to take some days off work and visit home. When I mentioned this to Sophia, she said she wanted to go too. I'd like to visit the grave too. Okay, I'll let Grandma know. She'll be thrilled. My mother, now in her 80s, seemed a bit down ever since my father passed away. Even though my younger brother who lives nearby checks in on her, I'd like to visit during the holidays, chat with her, and help out with household chores. When I told Walter about this, as expected, he complained. You're gonna be away for 3 days, even though you're a wife? We're also going to visit your parents' grave. It's not about that. Leaving me alone for that long is just not right. Since his parents had already passed away, we usually visit their grave first. I believe I'm fulfilling my duties as a daughter-in-law. I'll leave money for 3 days' worth of meals on the table. Typical. Ditching your kitchen duties? Make sure to catch up on cleaning, laundry, and dishes when you get back. I'll leave my stuff out just to ensure you have something to do. I was tempted to retort, Why don't you clean up after yourself for once?" but swallowed my words and got in the car. As soon as we left, Sophia vented her frustration. "Why is he so arrogant? Mom, are you okay being treated that way?" "I've just gotten used to tuning him out." Seeing my half-smiling face, Sophia looked displeased. But she quickly changed the subject, probably out of concern for me. "Oh, speaking of which, about the new apartment we're moving into. You were living in the place that Kevin had since his bachelor days, right? And now it's gotten too cramped?" "With both Ethan and me working from home more, we felt the need for a home office. We just signed the lease recently and are now packing." "That's great to hear." The new apartment is in the downtown area. I anticipated Walter making a fuss about it when he found out. That evening, my mother, Sophia, and I made meatloaf together. In the middle of our meal, Walter called. He typically complained over the phone whenever I visited my family. I assumed this call would be about some trivial matter like wanting a different beer or finding a hair in the hallway. Thinking to share the conversation with my mother, I put the call on speaker. Walter's cheerful voice echoed. "Having a good time over there?" "Pretty much." "What do you want?" "You don't need to come back." "What?" "I've brought over Sophia and Ethan's moving boxes. There's no space for you anymore." I was at a complete loss for words. I glanced over at Sophia, who looked just as perplexed as I did. Walter, sounding triumphant, continued. "With you around, Sophia won't come home. If you leave, she can live freely like when she was a child. So, just go." "Well, I'm already living quite freely with Kevin." Sophia protested from beside me, but it seemed Walter wasn't listening. "You can live alone in a facility." I was more flabbergasted than angry at Walter's smug remark. "Understood." I replied calmly and hung up the phone. Immediately after, my mother and Sophia, sitting next to me at the dinner table, burst out laughing. They couldn't contain themselves, laughing so hard they held their stomachs. Walter, as always, never listens to anyone. Talk about being in his own world. "This is crazy, Grandma," Sophia said, wiping tears from the corners of her eyes. I was too upset to laugh. In my heart, I was cursing Walter. I had turned a blind eye to his antics because he was fond of Sophia, but this was the last straw. He better brace himself. An apology later won't cut it. After the call, I quickly finished my meal. I then arranged for a moving company and made another important call. As time passed, Sophia seemed to become angrier. As she washed dishes, she vented. "No matter if he's the father, entering someone's house and moving their belongings without permission is utterly ridiculous. Unforgivable. We can confront him together, but let him speak his mind for a while. I want to record everything." "Got it." On the way home with Sophia, we stopped by a divorce attorney's office. The moment we opened the front door, boxes that couldn't fit in the living room spilled out into the hallway. Sophia's belongings. He really brought them here. Walter appeared with a grin for Sophia and then glared at me. "Sophia, welcome back." "Why did you come back?" "Don't worry. I just came to grab some valuables and a change of clothes. I'll be moving out within the week." You finally get it. When I placed the divorce attorney's business card on the dining table and urged Walter to sign, he remarked with a smirk. "I should have done this sooner. I kept you around thinking you'd be a good housekeeper since you're Sophia's mother. But I realized I can just make Sophia do all the chores." The one who had been putting up with everything was me. I ignored him and started transferring my valuables into my bag. "Hey, are you sure about this?" "Sure about what?" "You're being stubborn. You don't have anywhere to go, right? I heard your brother and his wife are moving in with your mom next year. You'll struggle living alone with your meager salary." Walter spoke to my back with arrogance as I packed my suitcase. "If you change your mind now and apologize for everything and swear to serve me for the rest of your life, I might let you stay in this house. Thanks for the offer, but I'm good." I had already booked a place, and I'm just moving there a bit earlier. Oh, some rundown apartment? That would suit you better than this stylish room. Don't you think so, Sophia? Walter laughed crudely. Sophia, who had been frowning all this while, finally spoke. You're seriously mistaken, aren't you? Wait, Sophia. Enough already. Dad, you seem to be under the impression that I dislike Mom. I need to set things straight. Walter's eyes widened in surprise. Comparing me and Sophia, a small smirk formed on Walter's lips. You're too late. I know everything about Sophia. How you found your mother annoying, how you chose a college with dorms because you didn't want to see her. But when you started working and living alone, you missed your dad and sometimes came home, right? Sophia, wrapping her arms around herself and grimacing, retorted. Ew, are you serious? What? Walter's eyes widened in surprise. The one I found annoying was you, Dad. I left home because I couldn't stand seeing you verbally abuse Mom and watching her silently endure it. I also hated that I couldn't stop it. I looked at Sophia, shocked. Sophia. Sure, during my rebellious phase, I might have been cold to Mom. But have you ever heard me say anything bad about her? I bet you haven't. Seemingly hitting a nerve, Walter's face contorted in discomfort. If you treated Mom better, I would have commuted from home to college. The cold treatment I received from Sophia during her rebellious teenage years no longer bothered me. However, I always believed Sophia left home to avoid our disagreements. I never thought that Sophia hated me, but I did believe she didn't want to live with me. Discovering this unexpected truth made my heart heavy with emotion. Also, you think I don't know, huh? About the debt you made from gambling. Walter's cheeks tensed up. What are you talking about? Feigning ignorance, Walter's face turned pale, his voice shaking. Don't play dumb. You used my college tuition for horse racing and boat racing, didn't you? Mom had to borrow money from Grandma to pay it off, right? Michelle! You spilled the beans! Walter shouted at me. No, I overheard you talking to Grandma in the hallway when you returned the money to her. I later asked Grandma about it. I had asked Mom to keep that a secret. I didn't know she told Sophia about it. Sophia glared at Walter and smirked. To you, gambling was more important than my college, huh? Sure, you were affectionate, but that's just how much you cared, right? Walter mumbled. That's not true. You and gambling both were equally important to me. Proof is, I took you to the racetracks, right? If gambling was more important, I wouldn't have spent time with you. What's with that excuse? Another thing, Sophia. You seem to think that I treated your mother poorly, but that's not the case. Walter said emphatically. I was just trying to teach her where she was lacking. Telling her to be more ladylike, more motherly, to be a good wife to her husband. I was just disciplining her to correct those things. What's wrong with that? Sophia closed her eyes, rubbing her forehead, clearly exasperated. Mind your own business. Who do you think you are, acting so high and mighty? I'm grateful that you played with me when I was a child. But you were always bad-mouthing Mom in front of me. I really hated it. Releasing years of pent-up frustration, Sophia vented. While demanding 3 dishes for dinner and a spotless house, you'd leave your clothes everywhere and wouldn't even make your own coffee. Thanks to you, I grew up distrusting men and struggled with the idea of marriage. Walter seemed not to have heard Sophia's passionate plea. He let out a soft sigh and furrowed his brows. Seems like you've got the wrong idea, Sophia. Well, if we live together, you'll understand. What? I'm definitely not living with you. I'll move my stuff to my new place tomorrow. You've always been stubborn, huh? Or is it playing hard to get? I know deep down you really love me. You're just shy, aren't you, Sophia? Chuckling, Walter took the divorce attorney's business card. We're gonna be total strangers soon. Move out quickly. Don't leave your stuff here too long, it's a hassle. I will. So, you better find a new place too. If you dilly-dally, you'll get kicked out. What? Walter looked dumbfounded. I shot him a cold, sarcastic smile. Did you forget? This apartment used to belong to my father. It seemed the realization hit him like a ton of bricks. Seeing Walter's wide-eyed expression, I kindly reminded him. Remember when we were considering buying a house after getting married? Dad suggested we live here since a unit became available. Plus, it's close to your work. After Dad passed away last year, Mom inherited it. So, it's hers now. Walter went pale, rapidly recalling the phone conversation he had had earlier. I smiled gently and continued. Mom was listening to our call earlier. She said she wouldn't tolerate someone so ungrateful and inconsiderate. So, move out ASAP. Despite its age, the apartment is renovated and is quite a catch. Can't have you squatting here forever. But, if you're telling me all of a sudden. Desperately, Walter stammered. I thought my rent was being auto-debited from my account. Seriously? Don't you check your statements? And with your salary, there's no way you could afford the $1,000 rent. In that case, where are you planning to move? Without this place, you've got nowhere to go. And I won't let you live with Sophia. His face red with rage, Walter shouted, but Sophia shot him a cold, icy glare. For your information, I don't waste money on booze, cigarettes, or gambling like someone I know. I've been saving up for my part-time job, and I've booked a spot at a luxury retirement home. Apparently, there's a vacancy right now, so I'm moving there. It's in a hot spring town, right? With an open-air bath? And you can see the ocean from the living room? Excitedly, Sophia chimed in. I smiled. Exactly, the view is amazing. There's even a personal garden, so I can do some gardening. That sounds fun. I'll come visit. Please do. So, Walter, maybe you should find a place you like? I don't have that kind of money. His voice dropping, Walter admitted. But I sharply retorted. Figured as much. But I'll still be asking for alimony, so be ready to pay up. Alimony? I never cheated or anything. I've endured 32 years of your verbal abuse. You'll pay for every bit of it. Even if you have to take on debt, I expect you to pay up. No way. Oh, I got it. We don't have to get divorced. Suddenly hopeful, Walter exclaimed. Let's forget about this whole thing. What? You can stay in this apartment. We'll put the divorce on hold. That way, you won't have to leave, and I won't have to go, right? Glowing with what he thought was a brilliant solution, Walter was immediately shut down by Sophia's curt reply. Are you for real? Ignoring the stunned Walter, Sophia called out to me. Mom, once you're ready, let's head back to Grandma's house. We can leave the rest to the movers. Yeah, we've got a reservation at the sushi place for everyone tomorrow. Leaving a dazed Walter behind, Sophia and I went back to our family home. I won't accept this divorce. I'll live here forever. Though Walter was adamant about staying in the apartment, after being persuaded by the property management that an eviction would be costly, he reluctantly moved to a small rental apartment. Later, when he resisted the divorce, we hired a lawyer for discussions. Presenting recordings of Walter's past verbal abuses as evidence and informing him about the legal fees if it goes to court, he finally agreed to our terms. I didn't trust Walter, so I billed him all at once for the $10,000 in damages and the college tuition my mother had covered for him. After taking out loans to pay me back, Walter moved into a rundown apartment. After I shared the story of our divorce with colleagues, exaggerated rumors spread like wildfire, making it uncomfortable for Walter at work. Close to retirement, he resigned from his company and began working part-time jobs. Turns out, Walter had secretly racked up debt from gambling. It seems his severance pay went towards repaying the money he owed me and settling his gambling debts. He was denied re-employment and continuously failed his full-time job interviews. The vices he loved, alcohol, cigarettes, and gambling, became unaffordable. Working multiple part-time jobs from dawn till dusk, a mutual acquaintance told me. Sophia, who had initially planned to move into the apartment with Kevin, was bombarded with frequent calls from Walter and eventually blocked his number. But then, I started receiving daily messages and calls from Walter, asking about Sophia's well-being, so I blocked him too. As of now, I have no idea where Walter is or what he's up to. I've since quit my job and moved to a high-end retirement home, enjoying my days at a leisurely pace. Whether it's sipping tea on my balcony overlooking the sea, taking in the night sky from the outdoor tub, or tending to flowers in my private rooftop garden, time seems to pass so slowly here. It was an odd feeling at first, but I reminded myself this was my reward for years of juggling work and raising a child. No more living in fear of my husband's verbal abuse, even the air tastes sweeter. Sophia and Kevin live about an hour's drive from here, and I always look forward to their visits. Sophia did offer for me to move in with them, but I felt it best to maintain some distance for now. Recently, Sophia shared the news that she's expecting a baby, which filled me with joy. Looking ahead, I hope Sophia and I can continue to respect each other's lives, keep unnecessary meddling at bay, and maintain our close bond.